Morning before we hopped on this, I'm doing a renovation on a 6 unit project over, here in Cincinnati and walking with the framer, and he's pointing out all these things that it's not gonna break the budget, but yeah, we didn't fully account for that. Yeah, good thing there's a margin in there to be able to absorb that, because this is real estate. Everything takes longer and costs more than what you thought.
Yup, you said it exactly.
Yeah. Um, So what I'm curious, where do you think the market is headed over the next, say, 12 to 24 months?
I think, and as we know, if any of us can accurately predict interest rates, we'd all be doing very well.
We wouldn't be here.
Exactly. But I do, speaking to our broker relationships and speaking to players in the industry, as well as just what we read in various publications, I think there's a sense of cautious optimism that we're coming around the bend here, and that we're going to be getting back to a place of interest rate stabilization, with it starting to trend in the right direction for us. As you mentioned earlier, we're already pretty far off of where the highs were in interest rates in our multifamily space. And I think as we head in deeper into 24, into 25, you and I spoke earlier in this conversation about kind of the gap between seller expectations and seller hopes and interest rate realities, and how that delta has really been making deal making extremely difficult. So I think as that gap starts to narrow, the deal pipeline has been so slow. I feel like there are so many sellers who have been holding on by the skin of their teeth, not wanting to sell for minimum value. And as soon as there's some movement here, I think we're going to see a lot more deals hit the market. And I think those good multifamily investment opportunities for seasoned buyers will start to return. And like we talked about earlier, I do think we're going to see less of your first or second time syndicators who are going to be the buyers of these deals. I think we're going to see it be more established players in the field who are going to be the buyers of these deals. I don't think your first or second timers are going to be able to get investors to trust in them. There's a lot of investor weariness and leeriness of groups that don't have the history. And I think we're going to have a more seasoned buyer pool going forward. And I do think we're going to start to see deal flow pick up, and a lot of groups who have had a dry powder waiting on the sidelines jumping back in with 2 feet here.
Interesting.
What do you see, Stash? What are you anticipating?
I think similar to what you're thinking, there, like I mentioned, we have a lot in the front end of our pipeline right now, and it's just trying to figure out how to effectively navigate all these opportunities that have come in. Which ones are real? Which ones are is there still too much of a gap? Staying on top of them and trying to understand where they are actually sellers. Is it really at the number that they're telling me, or is it maybe something a little bit less? And that's a tough dance, but that's our job. So, yeah, I think that there's certainly hopeful. There are more opportunities coming here in 24, and then certainly through 25 as well. And I think also, and it's not to be political, but I think the fact that we are in an election year, that we'll see some lowering of the Fed rates, which will cause interest rates to continue to lower. I think probably 3 times. At least that's what I'm hearing. We'll see. I don't know.
Yeah.
What, for somebody who is trying to get into real estate, what advice would you give to them as either a principal or a broker, or somewhere in between?
Yeah, I would say, whether it's real estate, whether it's any business you're trying to start or get into, I think you need to be a communicator, you need to be a listener, and you need to be accountable. And your relationships in any field you're in are so critical to success. Like,